In the late 1989, in one of San Diego's wealthiest neighborhoods, two people were sleeping peacefully in their bed, completely unaware that their killer had just stepped inside. The woman holding the gun wasn't a stranger. She wasn't a career criminal or a masked intruder. She was Elisabeth Anne Broderick, or as everyone called her, Betty. And in just a few seconds, she would do something that would make headlines across the country and leave an entire city wondering, how did a well-off housewife become a cold-blooded murderer? But to understand why this happened, we've got to rewind. Back to when Betty first met the man she would eventually kill. She was a bright young Catholic girl from New York, raised in a big traditional family. Her job. According to her parents, it was simple. Marry a good man, support him, raise his kids, and don't complain. That's what she was taught. That was the plan. And for a while, it worked. She met Dan Broderick in the 60s. He was tall, charming, ambitious. He wasn't just going to be a doctor. He wanted more, and a law degree, too. Harvard, Cornell, the works. Betty fell for him hard, and they married in 1969. From day one, she supported him. Paid the bills, raised the kids, cooked the meals. She even sold Tupperware at one point just to keep food on the table while Dan worked through law school. But all that sacrifice had paid off. By the early 1980s, Dan Broderick wasn't just successful, he was rich. Like Mansion in La Jolla rich, he became one of San Diego's top malpractice lawyers. Betty finally had the life she'd always dreamed of. Country clubs, private schools, vacations, the whole 9 yards. But that perfect picture, it didn't last. Because that's when she showed up. Linda Cocaina, Dan's new assistant. 20-something blonde. No law background, didn't need one. Betty saw it coming from a mile away. But when she confronted Dan, he said she was paranoid. Jealous, crazy. But he moved out anyway. And Betty, she lost it. She threw fits, left profanity-filled voicemails. Drove her car into his front door. And every time she lashed out, Dan tightened the leash. Custody of the kids, control of the money, court orders. The man who used to be her husband had now become her enemy. And he had all the power. She said he was gaslighting her, controlling the narrative, making her look unstable while he played the calm, collected professional. She tried to fight back. But he was a lawyer, she wasn't. Then in 1989, the unthinkable. Dan married Linda, that wedding, that was it, the final nail in the coffin. Because on the morning of November 5th, 1989, Betty used a key she'd secretly taken from her daughter. She snuck into Dan and Linda's house just before dawn. Quiet, controlled. The gun in her purse, loaded. She crept upstairs, stood in the doorway of the master bedroom, and opened fire. 5 shots, 2 bodies. Linda was dead instantly. Dan tried to grab the phone. She yanked it out of the wall. And just like that, the man she once loved was gone. Later, she claimed she didn't mean to do it. She said she was just going there to talk. Maybe even end her own life. But when Linda screamed, she panicked. That's her version. The prosecution had another. They said it was planned. That Betty had fantasized about this, talked about it, threatened it. And when she finally pulled the trigger, it was no accident. The first trial, hung jury. The second, guilty. 2 counts of second-degree murder, cost years to life. But even now, decades later, Betty says she's not sorry. She still believes she was pushed to the edge, that Dan's betrayal and the system's silence broke her. And some people, they believe her. Others say she's dangerous, manipulative, and unrepentant. Even her own kids are split. Some have called for her release, others have cut her off entirely. So what really happened here? Was this the story of a woman destroyed by a man who had it all and threw her away when she was no longer useful? Or was it the story of someone who couldn't let go, whose obsession turned deadly? The truth probably lives somewhere in between. But what we do know is this: Betty Broderick didn't just murder 2 people that morning. She destroyed a family, shattered lives, and became one of the most infamous names in true crime history. All because something inside her finally snapped.